Last week, I shared with you a special interview with my friend Martina Fink all about perfectionism. As a recovering perfectionist, this was a really fantastic conversation, if I do say so myself. And even though I've been friends with Martina for years, I walked away with so many insights and action steps. Over the past week, I have been journaling nonstop on some of the things that she shared in episode 1. Today, we're going to dive into episode 2. And inside of this part, we are talking more about really trusting yourself and trusting your intuition. I share more about a breaking point that I experienced and how you might be experiencing something similar as an entrepreneur who constantly is working. Martina also shares so much insight on what sustainable self-care actually looks like. You know I love that word here at Brand Mary. And we talk about habits. This part of the episode is really going to support you in taking action, and I can't wait to hear all the amazing insights that you walk away with. As a reminder, if you haven't listened to part 1, definitely jump into that before diving into today's episode. You can listen to that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or watch it right on YouTube. And if you want to learn more about Martina, including her recent journey to becoming an ecstatic dance DJ, you can find out more at martinafink.com. Let's get into today's episode.
This is the Authentic Brand Builders Podcast with Michelle Knight.
How the heck do we trust ourselves? I feel like, for me, obviously, it was a breaking point in things around me were saying, you can't keep working like this. You have to take a break. You cannot keep pushing in this way. But what if you don't have those outside forces, kind of demanding that from you? And instead it's this tingle inside, this little burning that's like really small.
I think first of all, I want to say that we go through seasons and our businesses go through seasons. And just because something really excited us for a while doesn't mean that it has to be like this forever.
Yeah, exactly.
So giving yourself the permission slip to change things and to do things differently and to stop something completely, to throw something overboard and start something completely new. This is the beauty about having your own business, is that you get to do whatever you want to do. If you don't like it, you don't need to do it. Like, why would you do it, right? So releasing the need to do something or perform in a certain way just because you think that's how it should be. You are free to do whatever you want to do. So there are seasons for things. We go through seasons, and we're allowed to change whenever we feel like we need to change things. The other thing that you mentioned about your intuition, I think that has really helped me and that I use with my clients often, is choosing love over fear. So whenever we need to make a decision, I ask myself, what would love do? What would love do has always helped me to make decisions from a place of love, from a place of confidence, from a place of trust, from a place of expansion. Whereas when we take decisions from a place of fear, there's often this contracting feeling, even in our bodies, right? You can close your eyes and ask yourself, or even visualize the outcome if you decide to go with, let's say, A, right? You think about you're taking decision A. How does that feel in your body? Do you feel an expansive feeling? Like mostly you would feel it in your chest, maybe in your throat, maybe in your mind with like expanded vision. Then that would be the decision out of love. If you think about scenario B, what would that feel like? And you feel that you're contracting, your throat is being restricted, you don't see anything. Like it can be in different parts of the body, but you would feel this feeling of contraction versus expansion. It can also be a gut feeling. We call it gut feeling because we also have it in the gut or in the stomach. Sometimes you get like a weird feeling in the stomach if something isn't right. You might also get butterflies if something's really exciting. So the body communicates with us all the time. And I think it's such a powerful tool to use. We don't always, I think the thing about trust is it's not logical. It doesn't make sense. We don't have a reasonable explanation as to why something feels right. and you don't need an explanation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If it's a no and you cannot explain why, you don't need the reasons. It's simply a no. It doesn't feel good. It's not the right thing, and that's it, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that goes back to like honoring yourself too. Again, knowing yourself, right? This all goes back, it's full circle, right? Knowing yourself, really understanding who you are and what you want and how you want to show up in the world and how you want to live your life. And then being able to have these moments where you're going between A or B and feeling one way and then going, yeah, that's a line. That feels good. That's a line. This feels right. This doesn't feel right. I think it's so much easier to do that when you really do have your compass, you have your internal compass of like, I always call it the brand filter. I run it through the brand filter. Does this work for my brand? Yes or no? Nope. Great. We're not doing it because I know my brand.
I like to say that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you are intuitive in your business, you will also be intuitive in your life and vice versa. And intuition is something you can practice in the most simple everyday situations. So when you're at the coffee shop, do you want the matcha or the coffee? And like, which one excites you more? Which one feels more exciting in your body if you don't know? You cannot logically explain, I need the coffee because of this, I need the matcha because of this. Like, it doesn't matter, right? But you will have a feeling, you will have a pull towards the one or the other. And so as you practice this in your everyday life with the simplest decisions, what are you going to drink? What are you going to cook for lunch? What are you going to wear today? What kind of makeup are you going to put on? How are you going to do your hair? Which bag are you choosing today as you go out? Like, it doesn't really matter. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And the more intuitive and fast, the faster you can take these decisions in terms of what feels better, the easier it will become to make the bigger decisions in life and the bigger decisions in your business too.
Oh, that was good. I feel like I needed to hear that today. Like, I feel like I struggle the most with the tiny decisions, Like, what am I eating at a restaurant can completely spiral me into like analysis paralysis where I'm like, I'm not hungry anymore. But I have really discovered through my journey that on the days when I feel grounded, on the days when I've taken time, I've gotten the sleep, I've done the workout, I've done the things to honor me and my values, I'm much better at making decisions in my life.
I mean, I told you it's really simple, right?
I know you did. You always do.
The sleep, honestly, the number one thing I I know for myself, when I don't sleep well, I'm grumpy. I don't know, what decisions to make. I'm stressed out easily. I'm irritable. It's so clear as day to me. When I don't have enough sleep, I'm a mess. You might not notice it, but I know it for myself since I've done all this work, right? And so it's drinking enough water, it's getting some movement in, whatever that movement may be. It doesn't have to be 5 times a week going to the gym. It can be a walk, it can be some stretching, it can be just anything that creates some movement in your body as the energy can flow. Yeah. And
Would
then
you
being kind to yourself as well, like observing your thoughts and how you are talking to yourself.
Yeah, would you say those are kind of like your three? Because I was going to ask you, like, someone who really needs to check their self care, right? And I would say perfectionist, hands down, let that stuff go so easily because they're constantly thinking about everyone else and everyone else's needs and how can I show up, that they forget that you're the vehicle. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
there's no gas in the car, you ain't going nowhere. If the car is not charged, nothing is happening. Would you say that those are kind of your big three that you always check in with your clients? Like, are you getting these things daily?
It's definitely the sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the boundaries between work. So are you working 12-hour days, or are you actually setting a specific boundary as to when your hours are over, or when you have a headache, or when you're tired, when you need a break to eat lunch, you need a break to go to the bathroom? Like, are you doing these things? Are you prioritizing your physical needs over everything else? Like, I remember a time where I would like eat lunch at my desk because I'm like, I have so much work to do. I need to squeeze everything together and do two things at the same time. That's very unhealthy and it's very unproductive. It doesn't give your mind or your body the break to actually recharge fully after a couple hours of work, right? And so being able to take the breaks and listen to your physical body, your physiological needs is very, very important. The other thing that I always do for myself is journaling. I personally journal almost every day, usually at night. But I don't think at night is better than in the morning. It's just whatever works for you and with your flow. But it's a time for me where I have a conversation with myself. I let my frustration out. I write out about what's not working out. I write about what I'm grateful for, maybe some projects. I give myself advice as to what I should do with a specific situation. It's a really powerful tool for me to to nurture myself.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you shared those in more of like broad, like you said, journaling. I don't care when you do it. I don't care how long you do it. Like just make it a priority to do it. I think I really struggled with this and I've been very open about this. Like when I first started my entrepreneur journey, I was like, okay, what's everyone's morning routine? You know? And it was like so rigid and like it didn't work for me. Of course it didn't work for me. And that translates into every aspect of running a business, from what marketing strategy, so on and so forth, you know, really doing what is serving you. So I love that you have these like three things, but they're not rules that we have to follow. Which again is a perfect exercise for perfectionists to see like how do you make it work for you without having like a timer set for I have to journal for 10 minutes every single day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see a lot of perfectionists struggle with either not having time for themselves, like you mentioned before, because everyone else comes first, right? But the other thing that I see, the other extreme of perfectionism when it comes to self-care is that a lot of perfectionists have these perfect list of self-care things they need
Yeah.
to do. Oh, I need to meditate 30 minutes every morning. I need to do yoga 30 minutes every morning. I need to make a healthy breakfast before going to work. And it becomes such a long list. And the list is absolutely not doable for someone who works full time and maybe has kids or, whatever. It's not realistic. And so what happens often is they throw everything overboard. They're like, I don't have time for self-care. But that's not self-care. That's like I don't know what this is even called, like controlling
Yeah.
mechanism or whatever, trying to be the best and giving yourself validation for achieving things that are not realistic. The important thing is you have to start small, right? We love simplifying things. So how can you make it simple? How can you make it a priority to meditate today? It can be as short as 2 minutes. And if you tell me you don't have 2 minutes, go look at your screen time and how much you spent on social media, and then come back and justify how you don't have time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think we make up a lot of excuses for why we don't have time, and I get it. Like, I have one kiddo, I run a business full time. I homeschool my son. I don't have four kids, I'm not a caretaker for my parents as well. We all have different stories, but the time is absolutely there. We can find it. And I talk about that a lot too. Like, I think a lot of people think like, oh, I have to sacrifice something to make this happen. It's not a sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like you're deliberately choosing the person that you want to be. You're choosing the identity. You're choosing how you want to show up in the world, how you want your relationships. And sometimes that means that you have to let go of things that are not serving you and serving the person that you want to be.
Okay, two things.
Yep.
First of all, victimhood. You mentioned you were choosing. That's extremely important. It's something I had to learn too. I'm not a victim of my schedule. I'm not a victim of time. I'm choosing to spend my time. Even when I was working full time, I was choosing to pursue that career. It was my choice. It was my choice to put my work over my personal health, over my well-being, over my relationships. And being able to take ownership of these decisions is really hard because you have to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, like, you know what? I'm doing something that I'm not okay with. I'm doing something that I'm not good at, or that's not good for me. And I need to change it. And that's scary. And so it's more comfortable to stay in that position than to actually face your deepest wounding
Of
and,
course.
you know.
Let's stay comfortable. It's safe here. Feel safe at least.
Yeah, it is that. It's comfortable. It's cozy. It's kind of like, you know what? I'm safe here. Why would I go out there and change something when I don't know how it's going to turn out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to take full ownership of how you're spending your time, what you're doing with your time is really important. The other thing when it comes to self-care is a concept that we use in health coaching generally for eating, which we call add in to crowd out. So I'm not a fan of restricting your food or saying you're not allowed to eat chocolate or you're not allowed to have coffee or whatever. We want to crowd it out slowly. We want to create a sustainable routine, sustainable habits. And so it's the same with self-care. I don't believe you should cancel your Netflix account and delete your Instagram from your phone. I mean, if that helps you, of course, do it, but it's not a healthy relationship to be on and off. Like be on the app all the time and then delete it because you can't handle it, and then being on the app all the time and then deleting it again, right? It's not a healthy relationship. And we want to be able to find ways to cope with everything. We want to be able to have a balance between Netflixing and also taking care of ourselves. We want to have time to be on social media and consume the content that is helpful and inspirational for us. And we want to have the time to go for walks and nourish our relationships. And so if we can find ways to add in some simple self-care that is doable, eventually you will be able to crowd out the toxicity of social media or the toxicity of online shopping, whatever your coping mechanisms will be, because you are nurturing yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be you're allowed to Netflix, but maybe before you Netflix, how about taking a hot bath? Or how about 10 minutes of journaling? Or how about calling your mom first and then you can do the thing?
Mm-hmm.
And naturally you will notice that you will have less of a desire to do these things because you're nurturing yourself on a different level.
Yeah, I feel like coping mechanisms is a whole nother conversation. Maybe we'll be back on to talk about that. But I agree with everything that you said. And I think those are fantastic examples for someone who does feel like, and you use the word victimhood, which I agree with, that they don't have the time for themselves. And it really is just reevaluating where their time is ultimately going. I love the analogy that you shared though about like slowly. I have so many I'm like going through my head now of all the times I've done that, like not really thinking about it, how it's actually
Yeah.
supported me in making these changes. All right, I want to talk a little bit, just a tiny bit about change, making change, because you did talk about this. We talked about the comfort level, and you just went through a big change. You just did something that was, I'd be scared to death. Going, obviously you went somewhere, you went to Bali, you've been there a million times, but stepping into a new world and also a new kind of path for your creativity and your career. Can you talk a little bit about what you just experienced and how you found the courage or the bravery to take that step to do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm currently working part-time and there has been some frustration about how things are going there. And I remember a time I was at dinner with one of my girlfriends and, complaining about some of the things and like, I want to change something, but I'm just haven't really found a way to do that or what exactly that change would look like. And I basically randomly told her, why don't I just go to Bali and like, maybe I should go to Bali and become an ecstatic dance DJ and, do something completely different. And she responded saying like, I know this guy, he does retreats in Bali for ecstatic dance DJs. I'm like, oh, interesting. What's his name? I look up the website. And it happened so that the retreat was exactly during the week where I was off work.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I've been to Bali so many times, I don't need an excuse to go to Bali, or like an excuse is always welcome for me. And so I was like, okay, I started talking to him, asking questions about the retreat. It was like, what about your next retreat, maybe not this one, but maybe the next one. And he's like, no, actually, we're going to have a baby, so I won't be hosting any other retreats anytime soon. So I'm like, okay, well, whether you want to call this the universe or a sign or whatever it is, I believe in alignment. And so I felt like it was aligned. I found myself looking at the website over and over and over again and reading through the details. And even though I've read through them before and many times, I still found myself in that energy again. And I noticed what I talked about earlier, the expansion in my heart space. Like I noticed the excitement that was cultivated in my body as I read through the website. And so I decided to go. And I went to Bali, and now I'm an ecstatic dance DJ. And I just hosted my first ever official event yesterday with a bunch of people who actually paid to come to the event, people who have never been in my community before. Don't ask me how they found out about it, but it was just so beautiful to be in that space. And I didn't really have any fears. Like I mentioned before, music has always been a part of my life, so it's not something new to me. I know that I'm really good at this because I've been immersed with music ever since before I was even born. But I think the whole work that I've done in the past 10 years of worthiness and knowing that I can trust myself and knowing that I can follow the love, I can follow the excitement, has made it really easy for me to go down this path. I don't know exactly where this is leading me. I know I have a very clear vision for some of the things I want to do. I have a very clear vision for things that I see other people doing that I would love to do myself. But as of right now, I just trust the excitement. I trust and I follow the excitement. If something excites me, I will do it. If it feels off, I will not do it. And again, it's the simplicity of things. And it's only because I've done all this deep work around releasing the judgment, releasing whatever else, whatever everyone else is going to think of me. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you like it or not, what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it because it feels right for me.
I love that you are also highlighting the process. Like you don't necessarily know exactly where this is leading. Again, going back to our target market here. We love to know the outcome before we get started. But the process is so important. And like you're saying, back to what we talked about, when you can trust yourself and you can identify the things that you want and the things that you don't want, or the things that feel good and the things that don't feel good, it's going to make the process so much more enjoyable. But still, it's okay to get started when you don't know exactly how it's going to end. And I mean, as your friend, I'm so I've seen this process from the beginning when you told me on the phone, and I've been there and seen it. Thought it's so cool to see it come to life, and it's so inspiring. And I just really wanted other people to hear that, like, you don't have to have it all figured out to take the first step. Especially entrepreneurship. Many of you don't know how this is going to turn out, and you started taking the first step, whether you've posted your first thing online, built your website, or started making all of your sales. Like, you still don't know how it's going to end up, and it's going to change. We know that to be so freaking true. And really just trusting yourself and just enjoying the process, I think, has been my biggest takeaway.
Yes.
You don't know what you don't know, too. You don't know what you don't know. And you might try to figure it all out and have it all planned, but like, there are other things and other opportunities waiting for you, and they happen through the action, I truly believe.
Yeah, it's really about the journey and not the destination in this life. Like, and you know this very well yourself, like we only have this moment right now. We don't know if we're still going to be alive tomorrow or next week, in a month, in a year. We really don't know. So why should I hustle and burn myself out for something that's in the future that I don't even know if it's going to happen? So this is a big mindfulness practice. If something feels right for you right now, then trust that this is right for you right now. It might not be okay tomorrow, then tomorrow you can do something different. But being really present with what is and focusing on what you can control right now helps you release some of the worry and the fear that put that catapults you into the future. And whenever you're in the future, whenever you're in the past, you're not really here, you're not present, you're not really living. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have visions and you shouldn't make plans. Obviously, make plans, you know. But if you think about the analogy of a car driving to, let's say, Rome, which is close for Switzerland,
Lucky.
you know, you know, you want to go to Rome. Okay, so you have a bigger vision, you have a destination you want to go to. Let's say you drive in the dark, you have the lights on of your car, you don't see the whole path to Rome. You only see the next 60 meters or whatever inches that will be in the US. You don't need to see all the exact road where there's a curve and where it goes up and down. You just know that as you're driving, the next 60 meters will always be revealed. And that's all you need to know. And so perfectionists always want to know step number 57 to the whole process. But how about taking actual action with step 1? And then as you take action with step 1, you can then figure out step 2 and then figure out steps 3 and so on. So it's okay to have a plan. It's important to have a plan, but don't get lost in the details of micromanaging that plan and then paralyzing yourself to not even take the first step. Amen.
That right there. That right there. That wraps it up. I love it. All right. Well, I mean, I know we could talk for hours. It's almost been an hour now, and like we could keep going. But I also know that you have so much goodness to share on your own channels, with your own community, and I'm sure so many people want to follow your exciting adventure too. Now with ecstatic dancing, can you share some of the things that you're working on, as well as where people can come connect with you?
Yeah, so if you happen to be in Switzerland, obviously, come to my ecstatic dance events. We can link the details below, but you can find everything on my website, martinafink.com. I am hosting a retreat in Bali next year in April. So if you have been dreaming about a trip to Bali and have been waiting for the sign like I was to go there and really work on yourself, work on trusting yourself, creating the visions for your life, and creating simple self-care habits that are sustainable that bring you closer to the life that you want to live, while also like really thriving emotionally, physically, mentally, your health just being all radiant and glowing, then come join us. It's called the Glow Camp. We do all things glow over here. And yeah, I'll be creating something towards the end of the year that will be available online that is connected with ecstatic dance and potentially some journaling /workshop /coaching. So keep an eye out, for that. On Instagram, you can find me at martinaglows.
I love it. I have not been to one of your retreats in Bali. It's on the list, I know, but I have been to one of your retreats in New York City where I was a guest speaker, and the way that you take care of your participants, the way that you support them and lift them up, the tiny details that you provide constantly blow me away. So if you've been wanting to go to Bali, because who doesn't, B, really thinking that a deep dive, immersive experience with guidance from someone who's done all of these things, and I think that's a huge thing. Like, you've worked the 9 to 5, you've worked part-time, you've built your own business, you've navigated so many of the things in life that we have all navigated or are navigating now. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. In understanding when you go to these type of events, to know that, as a participant, I know for me that I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm understood is so important. So I would say to anyone listening, if you've been thinking about taking that time for yourself, diving in deeply, as a perfectionist, and working through some of these things that we weren't able to do on the podcast because it's a podcast, then definitely look into Martina's retreat, because it'll be one of the best things you invest in my opinion.
Yes. I would love to have you.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, my friend. We'll have to do this again sometime because it was great.
Thank you so much for, having this conversation. I think it's way overlooked, but in this whole hustle culture and all the things that we need to do and deliver and show up with and post 5 times a day on social media, like it just gets lost and we lose touch with ourselves. And I hope that this conversation has inspired at least someone to take better care of themselves, to prioritize their sleep, to really listen to this expansive feeling in their body and build a stronger connection between their mind and their body, and not just, living life based on what makes sense and what is logical.
So good, right? I am so excited that you now have been introduced to Martina if you weren't already before, and I hope you'll take this opportunity to learn more about the work that she is doing with her business. As a reminder, you can go to martinafink.com. We've also included all of the links and supportive materials over in the show notes at brandmary.com, as well as in the description on YouTube. Don't forget, you can grab that self-care planner for Perfectionist as well. I'll be back with another episode next week. In the meantime, make sure you go back and listen to part 1 if you didn't, and dive into some additional resources over at brandmary.com. Talk to you soon. Bye.